Hi everybody, welcome to our session number 6. So just getting ready to let everybody get focused, get your drinks, get comfy, so we have some time to learn some great stuff today. So I just want to remind you, if you're watching online during the session, each session you will have to watch all videos. You do have to open up the PDF files, print out your worksheets, work the program. Things work if you actually take the time to do them. So it's important, I believe, that for everybody, here in person you get the worksheets handed to you, but if you're watching online or you're watching live, you have to actually print those out for yourself. Now, if for any reason you're having a struggle doing that or open up a PDF file, let me know and I can always send you them in some type of a Word doc, or I'll figure out something I can do for you. But generally, they're pretty easy to open up and at least take a look at. So, and if you can't print them for some reason, at least open them, work them, take down, maybe you have a journal or a notebook where you can take notes. It's just important. Again, I hope that you're serious about this, because this is a huge program that you've been ordered to do, obviously. And just because you've been ordered to do it doesn't mean that you can't learn something and take something away from a bad situation. So I'm hopeful that you're going to turn something that wasn't a great situation into a solid situation by learning and applying tools and techniques to your life. So session 6 is about coping and healing some of our anxieties and depression. So we're going to take a pretty in-depth look at mental health today. And it's important in recovery, it's important in our general life, it's important in our family, it's important within our relationships. It's obviously going to be important when we're employed. So we just want to really look at this, and we want to define some things. Obviously, there's more than what there's time to discuss in a session. So I hope that you'll be able to take the information I give you and further on, maybe after you're done with your treatment, with this part of treatment, you've decided to go more individual and you're going to get some one-on-one work, or maybe you're going to join some support groups. I just really hope that you carry on and continue in your journey of healing and moving forward. And if you are in recovery, then congratulations. And I am excited to hear the status of how you're doing. Keep me updated. Reach out to me. I love to hear your success stories. So don't think that just because when after the 10 sessions that you're done with me, you don't have to be done with me. You can totally reach out to me, share with me, write to me, anything. Contact me by phone. I'd like to know what's going on with you, how you're doing, and anything that I can answer questions for. Of course, I'm here for you as well. So some symptoms of anxiety, if you've ever had anxiety, you know exactly how it feels. So it's easy to sit here for a person that's had anxiety and say, oh, I already know what anxiety is. I know exactly what it feels like. But I also want to explain it in terms of not everybody has the same feelings regarding anxiety, and not everybody has anxious feelings. So for those who don't know what anxiety feels like, or for those who have had some symptoms of anxiety and aren't maybe necessarily feeling it all the time, you're going to learn some new symptoms. You're going to learn more about anxiety. So restlessness is a common symptom of anxiety, and restlessness is exactly what it sounds like, the inability to rest, right? So when we're anxious, we might feel a little bit out of sorts. We're just not comfortable. We're not able to find that peace that we so desperately want. We're restless, and it can be an uncomfortable situation. It can be an uncomfortable feeling. But again, I'm hoping that as you learn in these sessions, the education that you're learning, and you gain a better understanding and a better, broader perspective of what is going on. And you can, even though you might feel restless, you don't have to let it consume you, and you definitely don't have to let it own you. So restlessness is definitely a symptom of anxiety. Insomnia can be a symptom of anxiety too. So if you're having trouble sleeping, and you're waking up, or you're sleeping for a little bit and then you're waking up in the middle of the night and you're just feeling less than uncomfortable, maybe you're restless in the middle of the night, just know that insomnia can certainly be a part of anxiety. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be. You can definitely have insomnia and not be anxious. But the two can run together, or they can run separate. But just know insomnia can certainly be a symptom of anxiety. Racing thoughts is something common too that we see in individuals that report to have anxiety. So racing thoughts are just kind of like when your mind just can't turn off. So it's not necessarily that things are running inside your mind, like it sounds like, but racing thoughts are just continued thoughts. where you just can't seem to stop thinking. And it might be about something you did at work, or maybe something you forgot to do at work, or maybe you have an issue with a family member, or maybe there's something going on in one of your relationships, and for some reason you just can't turn that off. Those are continuous racing thoughts. And a lot of times we see racing thoughts come together when somebody has insomnia. So maybe they're waking up in the middle of the night and those thoughts are right there, they're present, and this causes a lot of restlessness. So far, restlessness, insomnia, and racing thoughts can be three very powerful components to anxiety. A racing heartbeat is something that many individuals report when they're anxious. And a racing heartbeat can happen after exercise, right? A lot of times there's specific types of cardio that you want to do to increase your heart rate. But when you're just sitting there and nothing's going on and you're not moving and your heart begins to race, that can be an uncomfortable feeling, and it can certainly turn into a restless feeling. If you have been sleeping and you wake up and your heart is you find it elevated, that also too can be, alarming and concerning. Now, I would never discourage anybody from going to the doctor if they're having these symptoms, because these symptoms are physical and they're very uncomfortable. And I would love for you guys to go and make sure that there's nothing going on with your body physically that's causing this to happen. So you definitely want to be your own best advocate if you have symptoms like this. First of all, go. Make sure that there's nothing going on medically. And then once you find out maybe there isn't, maybe there's something emotionally or mentally that, or even in a relationship that you need to really sit down and address, okay? Sweating can be common in anxiety. So some individuals wake up and they've had maybe night sweats, or their heart's beating so fast and they're so restless, and they just notice that the sweat is coming out. And it can be an alarming condition, and it can definitely scare somebody. It can scare others that are around that person. So know that it can be a part of anxiety, but definitely if these are just brand new symptoms for you and you've never talked to a doctor about it, talk to a doctor. Because first of all, what that's going to do, a lot of times when we have these symptoms and we're anxious about it, when we find out that there's nothing wrong with us physically, that can be some relief. Obviously, we're like, well, then what's wrong with me? But when we rule out physical conditions, we can at least begin to tackle the issue, and we know that it's not some kind of, disease or illness that we have to address on a physical level. So by all means, if you're having something going on that has not happened before, please speak to your primary care doctor. See what's going on. Have some blood work. Have them check you out. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Nausea and GI upset can certainly be part of anxiety. So if you've ever had to just maybe give an impromptu speech, maybe somebody called on you, or maybe you're at work in a meeting and your supervisor asked you to speak, and you got a little nervous and you got a little anxious and you began to feel a little nauseous, or your stomach started to do weird things, that's not uncommon within anxiety. So anxiety can definitely create GI upset. And it's interesting because I'm going to tell you that the brain and the gut are connected, and there's something called the vagus nerve. It's a cranial nerve, and it's the longest cranial nerve there is, and it connects to the GI system from the brain. And when we have anxiety, it's very common to have GI upset, okay? So it's so fascinating to read more about the brain and the gut connection and how the two intertwine. So if you have some gut issues going on generally, or maybe you're unwell there, that can definitely contribute to your mental health. And if your mental health is a little off, that can definitely contribute to your GI health. So certainly take this information and further your research in it, and then you can kind of understand where you're coming from. I am a huge, ginormous fan of being empowered in my own health, okay, and walking. It doesn't mean I don't incorporate the use of doctors. I use holistic doctors, I use homeopaths, I use naturopaths, I see regular medical doctors. I have a team of people that I go to for information and for their services. So what I like to do is complete my research on the site. So I gather data from them, and then I gather data from what I can that's out there, whether it's research studies or if it's new groundbreaking information that they're beginning to study. I like to know what's going on, and I like to keep myself empowered, and I'm a huge advocate for that for everybody. So be in charge of your health. If somebody's not listening to you, make sure they do listen to you. It's important. I just want to share a brief part of my testimony. I was very sick for many years. And when I say that, I mean many years. There were years that I was a mom. I was a homeschool mom. I was working part-time. I was teaching at a university here in Arizona. And I was, being a mom and just doing some fun stuff with the family, and I just didn't feel good physically. And a lot of times I can attribute that to like some aging or just being tired from being a mom. I had a young one and then I had an older one. I had several pets at the time. So it was just a lot going on. But at the same time, I just didn't feel good. And I saw, at least a handful of physicians, okay? I went to all different types of physicians too. I wasn't just narrowing it down to one. If one told me nothing was going on, I was like, well, I'll see a different type of specialist. So I saw different types of specialists. I complained, I cried, I saw every kind of doctor from physical health to mental health. So I was like, what's wrong with me? If nothing's wrong with me physically, then what's going on with me mentally, right? And I was trying to figure it out, I don't feel good. And by not feeling good, I mean, I had a lot of nausea, which for me created a lot of anxiety, but I really felt like the nausea was the physical problem, right? And that the anxiety was caused by just not feeling good. So I personally felt that there's something physically was wrong with me. And when I kept being told no, or my blood work was coming back okay, it just didn't make sense to me. And so I realized I could not stay quiet. I had to keep going. I had to figure this out, because most people were just like, you have anxiety, you have panic attacks. Well, I had them because I didn't feel good, and I was just blown away that nothing was apparently wrong with me. So I began to seek out more, and I learned more about what was going on. And one day I woke up, this was about 4 years later, after I'd already begun searching for doctors. I continued on my search, I continued seeing doctors, and about the 4th year into not feeling well, I woke up and I had some crazy vertigo that I had never in my life experienced. So I woke up, I was walking to feed my dogs, I bent over, picked up their dog bowls, and wow, my world began to spin. If you've ever had vertigo, then you completely understand where I'm coming from. And I had heard about vertigo, and I could definitely sympathize with somebody, but I never had walked in those shoes before, so I had no idea what was going on. And immediately, I knew something was wrong. And I knew it wasn't just something going on with my ears or some kind of virus. I knew there was something deeper happening to me. And immediately, the only type of physician that I had not basically seen was a neurologist. And I immediately scheduled with a neurologist. He listened to me. He performed some tests there, tried to invoke some vertigo, see what was going on with my eyes, checked my ears, all sorts of good stuff, and ordered an MRI and some other types of testing neurologically. And I turned out to have what's called a meningioma brain tumor, and it's at the base of my skull, compressing my brainstem, and it's affected 6 cranial nerves. And because it took so long to find, it was already very large when we discovered it. So surgery in this area, radiation in this area is very challenging. So I've known since 2016, so I've spent the last 3.5 years really working on my health and wellness, trying to avoid any type of life-saving surgery that would be needed. So I've, worked on my nutrition, I have looked at my spiritual health, my mental health, other areas of my physical health, my gut, because I know that the gut is connected with the brain. So I'm really working on a lot of healing. My point being that something was wrong with me, and nobody figured it out until it was almost too late. So the fact is now is that I have this ginormous brain tumor that I have to live with, because having surgery will never be able to remove all of it. That's just what it is. So now I have to figure out how not to die from it, right? Because it's in a critical location, and I have to figure out how to not upset it to make it more aggressive than it wants to be. So I have to do a bunch of stuff, and I had to educate myself on that, because that's not today what as a patient we're learning how to do. We're not necessarily learning how to understand our body and understand our mental health, but we should be. And if nobody's going to teach us, then there's plenty of information out there to learn on our own. So I'm here to tell you, empower yourself. I'm an advocate for it. Get out there and learn about what's going on with you. And if you've cleared it out physically and there's nothing going on, then begin to focus on the mental and emotional health. So anxiety can cause all sorts of physical symptoms, even headaches. it can just cause you to feel 100% unwell. Anxiety can lead to so many things. And when it causes physical symptoms like pain, GI upset, racing hearts, it just causes so much concern. So don't ever feel like you are less than anything for seeking out a doctor's opinion. And if something just doesn't feel right, or you continue to feel off and you just can't figure out why, make sure you have every avenue checked, and then begin to dive into the emotional and mental aspect. So there's also different types of anxiety disorders. So anxiety disorders is one of those things where you have like an umbrella. So it's an anxiety disorder, right? And then you have specific subcategories of anxiety disorder. And I took some notes for this specific session, and I'm just going to basically read some stuff that I wrote down. So first and foremost is generalized anxiety disorder, or what they call GAD, G-A-D. And general anxiety disorder is just when a person has an overwhelming, continuous feeling of worry. So it's not necessarily like where you're in a panic-stricken lifestyle, but maybe you're just constantly worried. Maybe you're worried when you left that you left something on at home, or when you get to work, you're worried that you're not going to finish all your work on time. And when you get home and you try and go to sleep, you just can't seem to turn off those thoughts. So generalized anxiety disorder, it can be hard to control, and it finds its way in all parts of our daily life. So generalized anxiety disorder can also just be a broad term when you haven't completely been diagnosed with something more specific. So generalized anxiety disorder can just encompass lots of different anxiety types of feelings. Whereas the phobias are anxiety disorders that are more specific. So maybe you have arachnophobia, right? Which is some type of fear of an insect or a spider. There's other types of phobias like claustrophobia, right? The fear of being in an enclosed space, or being stuck in something where you can't get out, being trapped. There is agoraphobia. Most people think that's just the fear of open spaces, but agoraphobia takes on a bigger meaning. So there are more generalized specific phobias that an individual can be plagued with, and it can be very time-consuming and life-consuming. So if you find yourself more specific phobia focused, talk with somebody, get in touch with a professional, call a counselor. And you know what, these days, it's not hard to find somebody that has the specific training in those types of phobias. So please, let your Google search be very specific for what you're looking for. This is all about you and being empowered for your own health and your mental health. Obsessive compulsive disorder, we've heard of it, OCD for short, is also anxiety disorder. And it's where somebody has persistent and repetitive thoughts that are unwarranted and definitely unwanted. And that would be the obsessive part. The compulsion is then some type of an act or a ritual that helps a person find ease with what they're obsessing about. So for example, a common one is if an individual has an obsession or obsessive thoughts about germs, the compulsion might be washing their hands to get rid of the germs. And it seems simple enough, right? We want to have good hygiene. We want to wash our hands. We want to not be sick. But an individual that has obsessive thoughts is going to continue to compulse on those thoughts because they can't get rid of them, and they're just cycling. It's obsessive thoughts, compulsive actions, obsessive thoughts, compulsive action. It's continuous until you learn how to break that cycle and become desensitized. So the washing of the hands can become so intense that a person can lose the skin off their hands can become red and irritated, and it can be just a very painful situation. And then on top of it, you're trying to keep yourself free from germs, but what you've done is you've cracked your hands, which our skin is the largest organ of the body. It's a very huge protection of our body, and now you've cracked it open, and little tiny microscopic germs can get in there now. So it's self-defeating, and you really want to learn how to break that cycle. So obsessive compulsive disorder is definitely an anxiety disorder that we hear a lot about. There's lots of shows on it now. It's definitely gained more awareness, and if you feel that you have anything going on with that, talk to somebody, reach out. Know that there's lots of people out there today that specialize in specific types of training for this. There's also post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. We hear a lot about it with people that are in combat, or combat veterans that come back and they have just a lot of trauma from what they've seen when they were in war and what they went through, right? And PTSD can also affect other individuals that have gone through traumatic experiences of rapes or home invasions. Even natural events like hurricanes and tornadoes can create trauma and leave a person with something called post-traumatic stress disorder. But today, again, we have so many skilled individuals that are trained in helping people heal from their trauma, and there's a lot of new techniques. There's techniques like EMDR, where there's machines that help the eye movements and begin to train the brain differently regarding a traumatic event. There's lots of modalities out there now to help people who are suffering with PTSD. So again, if you or you know anyone that is, please, reach out. Don't think that you have to stay and suffer in something like that, because we don't. Not today. Panic disorder is when an individual begins to have panic attacks, right? And that obviously falls under the category of anxiety too, but it's more intense, right? So a panic disorder, what happens physiologically, it's fascinating to see what the body does. But the body gets, it's like almost like it gets turned on, right? By like a switch. A switch turns on and the body's in some kind of a panic attack, right? And for no reason sometimes, or maybe there was an event that created a huge anxiety attack, and then that event's done with, but yet the body doesn't know how to turn it off. So the switch is continuously on and there's just panic attacks nonstop, right? So a panic attack can be an intense fear. There can be breathing discomfort. There can be chest pains. There can be intense nausea. Some people throw up with it. Lots of GI upset. There can be headaches. You can shake, you can faint, you can sweat. The physiological aspect of a panic attack is 100% fascinating, because what's really going on is the body's innate desire to want to protect itself. So it's trying to fight or flee or freeze, right? So it's like in this state of shock where it's like, I don't know, I need to do something, I have to protect myself. So you're either going to fight when there's nothing to fight, or you're going to freeze, because sometimes when we're freaked out, we freeze, or you need to flee and you just need to get out. But the problem is that more often than not, there's nothing that's going on that's really jeopardizing your life. So a panic attack and panic disorder is just being trapped in this perpetual anxiety attack that just cannot subside. So you really want to address this issue, because over time, having the release of adrenaline and cortisol, these different types of hormones and neurotransmitters that continue to release during a panic attack, can definitely plague our body. And over time, it's going to deplete our body of nutrients. It's going to cause our organs to not work as effectively. Your adrenal glands can be plagued by anxiety and stress and cortisol release when there's no necessary need for it. Sleep gets affected by it. All sorts of stuff. So we really need to address the issue. And if there was a traumatic event, like we just talked about, there's many specialists out here today that can work with that and can help you. So don't ever feel like you have to stay in such a frightening situation, because you don't, okay? I also want to talk a little bit about depression before we move forward into I want to learn I'm going to teach you guys some stuff today on how to cope with some anxiety, and then there's quite a few videos today. There's just so much good information for today's session, and it's a little bit of a longer session, but I hope that you guys just really enjoy it and you're really absorbing the content. So depression, we know that sometimes depression can look different for everybody, right? But for a general concept of depression, there can be tearfulness. Sometimes people get angry because they don't understand why they have depression. They may sleep too much or not enough, so they might have some insomnia, or they might have an overactive desire to sleep and be able to sleep that long. Headaches are common. Stomach aches can be common. A desire to isolate and stay away from people can happen, right? Suicidal thoughts can happen. There can be unresolved grief. Maybe somebody passed away or a relationship ended and things haven't been resolved or even touched at the surface level. And so a person's continuing to feel depressed. Depression can lead to constantly feeling down or hopeless, and those aren't good feelings. Nobody wants to feel hopeless. Hope is something that carries us so far, and when you don't have that hope, that is just a devastating loss. So we want to make sure that if we're having these kinds of thoughts, before it gets to where we're isolating, before it gets to where our thoughts are suicidal, we need to do something about it. Be proactive. It's much easier to take care of something when you're proactive as opposed to being reactive. So if you notice some of these signs going on with you or a loved one, intervene. Intervene for yourself. Intervene for them. Step in and see what you can do. See, maybe call a counselor, maybe call your doctor, see what needs to happen in order for you to start feeling better. Like I said, there's way too many specialists today, and there's way too many treatment options to stay like this. There really is. Having little interest or pleasure in doing things you used to enjoy. So that's another key symptom. If you are a generally active, healthy individual who likes maybe hiking and going out with friends and spending time socially, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself not wanting to do those things, or maybe less active or less desire to want to do those things, that can be a sign of depression. It's also common for people who have depression to feel anxious, and it's not uncommon for people who are anxious to have depression. The two, and vice versa, the two can run hand in hand. So when we're anxious, we can become depressed. And when we're depressed, we can become anxious. So just know it's not unusual to see both of those running together. We want to learn how to cope. And coping is how we absorb, learn, and understand a specific type of skill that helps us personally. So not every coping skill or mechanism is going to help every individual. But that's why it's important to learn different ones and then find the ones that work for you and apply them. And again, I've said this from our first session, and I'll say it throughout until we're done. The best way to get good at something is through practice, right? Our athletes, our world-renowned people that are good at stuff, they didn't get there by not doing anything. They got there because they practiced. And the same thing applies for us when we want to get well and we want to feel healthy. We have to practice our coping skills. So today, let's take out our worksheet, which is titled Grounding Techniques. Now, grounding techniques are something amazing to apply if you've had a traumatic experience, or if you're feeling even just a little anxious. You can begin to learn these. So there's something called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. And I'm just simply going to read it, and then you guys can begin to learn how to do it and apply it for yourself. Using the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, you will purposely take in the details of your surroundings using each of your senses. So we have 5 senses, and we're going to use them. You're going to strive to notice small details that your mind usually tunes out, such as distant sounds or the texture of an ordinary object. So this is exactly how you want to do it. And as you begin to practice it and put it into your daily lifestyle, you will remember these. But until then, you have them on your worksheet. So to begin, if you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling out of sorts, or you're sad, or anything's going on, remember your grounding exercise. So the first thing to do is look around and identify 5 things that you can see. So you're using your vision. 5 things you can see. Look for small details such as a pattern on the ceiling, the way the light reflects off of a surface, or even an object you've never noticed. So when I begin to look around, there's obviously more than 5, but right now I'm just going to focus on 5, and I'm going to look at the details that I might not always notice, right? So I can see a light with a fixture on it on the end that I don't always look at, but there's one, right? So now you take a look. Look around. Identify 5 things that you can see. Now we're going to go on to 4 things that you can feel. So we're going to use touch. Notice the sensation of clothing on your body, right? Notice the sun on your skin, or the feeling of the chair you are sitting in. Pick up an object and examine its weight, its texture, and other physical qualities. So obviously this is very light in weight. Its texture is, it's paper, so we all know what that texture is. But I'm focusing on that. So now I've diverted my brain's attention from feeling all these physical anxious symptoms or depressed symptoms, and I'm changing it. I'm helping my brain to do other things. And that's what we have to do. Our brain can learn how to do different things, but it has to be instructed to do those things. We have to use it. We have to do some great things with that. So 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel. Now you move on to 3 things that you can hear. Pay special attention to the sounds your mind has tuned out, such as ticking clocks, distant driving, traffic, even trees blowing in the wind. So if you're inside right now, you might not be able to hear too much except for my voice. But maybe when you stop, or I stop, you can hear a fan. Let's try it. I can hear other people talking. I can hear things outside of people walking. So there are different things for me that I can hear. So you guys try that too. So you've got 5 things to see, 4 things to feel, and 3 things you can hear. Now you're going to go on to 2 things that you can smell. Try to notice smells in the air around you, notice air fresheners, maybe freshly mowed grass. So these are great things to do, especially when you're outside. So a lot of this is trying to help you identify things outside. So if you have an anxiety attack or you're feeling maybe a little bit hopeless, go outside. First of all, go outside, get some sun, get the vitamin D on you from the sun, because that's a natural way to get some vitamin D. Don't get burned or anything, cover yourself, whatever you need to do. Get outside. Take a look. What are 5 things you can see outside? What are 4 things you can hear, or feel rather? What are 3 things you can hear? And then what are 2 things you can smell outside? When you're outside, you can smell a lot of different stuff. And then we're gonna do one thing that you can taste. Maybe you're chewing gum, or if you don't have any gum, carry it along with you. Get some gum, get some candy, small snacks for this step. Pop one in your mouth and focus your attention closely on the flavors. Again, this is all to divert the energy that you're using on your anxiety and to begin to put your brain in different perspectives, okay? So now your brain, which wants to work, can do different types of work, and it's not focused on the anxiety or the depression. Okay, so then now next for grounding techniques is choose at least 3 of the categories below and name as many items as you can in each one. Spend a few minutes on each category to come up with as many items as possible. This is fun to do. And again, this is something you can do on your own, or this is something if you're feeling anxious or a friend's feeling anxious, pull this out, think of it. The more you do it, the more you're gonna remember it, so you don't necessarily have to carry this around with you. You'll begin to understand it, and it's something easy to do. So with movies, name at least 3 movies. What are 3 sports teams? What are 3 animals? What are 3 countries, right? What are 3 colors, 3 cities, 3 books? 3 different types of cars, 3 TV shows, 3 cereals, 3 fruits and vegetables, 3 famous people, and you can add on your own. It is just working to divert your energy and your attention on what's going on. So some more grounding techniques, body awareness. The body awareness technique will bring you into the here and now by directing your focus to the sensations in the body. So you're going to pay special attention to the physical sensations created during each step. So you'll take 5 deep breaths through your nose and exhale through your puckered lips. You're going to place both of your feet flat on the floor, wiggle your toes, curl and uncurl your toes several times. Spend a moment noticing the sensations in your feet. Stomp your feet on the ground several times. Pay attention to the sensations in your feet and legs as you make contact with the ground. So really focusing on each individual part of your body. Clench your hands and your fists and release the tension. Repeat this 10 times. So do some progressive relaxation. So that's when you're focusing and you're honing in on specific types of muscle groups and stuff, and you're squeezing them, and then letting them go. And that's going to create a natural relaxation. It's also going to help you to identify the different types of feelings. Again, getting your mind and your brain working in different aspects to stay away from the anxious feelings and the depressed feelings. Press your palms together. Press them harder and hold this pose for 15 seconds. Pay attention to the feeling of tension in your hands and your arms. So try that one. I can definitely feel the tension. It's an interesting feeling. And it's fascinating to do because this is my body. My body is something that I can do so many different things with. But when I am anxious or when I'm feeling sad, I'm not trying these things. I'm forgetting how magnificent my body and my brain are, right? I'm forgetting that, and I'm getting lost in something like anxiety and depression. So I don't want to do that anymore. Rub your palms together briskly. Notice the sound and the feeling of warmth. So if you ever do this when you're cold, you know exactly what this feels like, right? But try it. Try it right now. It's something to do. It's something to practice. It's something to feel what's going on, and I can feel inside here getting a little bit warm. So it's just fascinating what our body can do. Reach your hands over your head, trying to reach the sky. Stretch like this for 5 seconds. Bring your arms down and then let them relax at your side. So, just basic little exercise. Take 5 more deep breaths and notice the feeling of calm in your body. So now you have worked some individual parts of your body, and then you can really breathe in and then breathe back out again. So this is it's kind of like an emotional exercise, right? It's like an emotional workout. So we need to physically work out our body, we need to feed our body good nutrients, and then we also have some emotional workouts we can do, and that's what these grounding techniques are good for. Here is one final one that we'll go over. And again, there's so many grounding techniques. You can Google them. You can find out more on your own. You could probably even make up your own that you feel work best for you. So mental exercises. Use mental exercises to take your mind off of uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. That's what we're doing. They are discreet and easy to use at nearly any time or place. So what's cool about these is that nobody's gonna know what you're doing, right? If you're just using your senses and nobody has any idea what's happening, right? Even when you're clenching your hands together or rubbing them together, nobody's really concerned about what you're doing. So these are very discreet. Name all the objects you see. Describe the steps in performing an activity you know how to do well. For example, how to shoot a basketball, prepare your favorite meal, or even tie a knot. Maybe some of you golf. Start thinking about golfing in your mind. Just describe inside your mind, describe everything that you do when you set yourself up, when you putt the ball, when you put the ball in, when you have to go pick the ball up. You know, just different things that you know how to do well, and go over them in your mind. Get yourself distracted. Count backwards from 100 by 7. That might be challenging for me, so I might start with 5s. But you know what? If you're up for the challenge, do it. It's something fun to do, and it's something to get your mind off of it. Pick up an object and describe it in detail. Describe its color, texture, size, weight, scent, and any other qualities you notice. Spell your full name and the names of 3 other people backwards. Name all your family members, their ages, and one of their favorite activities. Read something backwards, letter by letter. Practice for at least a few minutes. And then think of an object and draw it in your mind or in the air with your finger. Try drawing your home, a vehicle, or an animal. And you know what, again, there's so many different types of coping skills you can apply. And I hope that you feel that some of these might be something you want to try. You know, a lot of other coping skills that we can employ, we've talked about before, like exercise, walking, calling a friend, journaling, praying, meditating, whatever it is that helps you to feel better, listening to music. Maybe you're a musician and you write music. Maybe you're a writer and blogging is something that helps you. You find what helps you and you put it into practice and you put it into play. And you do this continuously so you retrain your brain and your mind, okay? And that's what is so important for things like anxiety and depression. Again, if you feel that you need to, please seek out some help from your medical doctor, seek out help from a counselor, somebody that knows how to assist you. And you can eliminate things. And as you eliminate things, you might feel a little bit better, and then you can start focusing in on what really needs to be done. All right, so we have about 4 videos to watch for the remainder of this session. So it's going to take a little bit more time. And then we are going to be moving into session 7 next, which we're going to start really talking about family and relationships. And I told you we have somebody coming that's going to speak about something they went through in their life, you know, just to get a different perspective and not just see me all the time, right? Give you a little break with that, but I will be there too. So I'll be present in your next session. Again, if you have questions, anything, we can talk during group. If you have questions, if you're watching online, please reach out to me. Please contact me by phone, by email, however you want to. In fact, on our website, we even have a chat text box that you can go on there and somebody here at the agency will reach out to you. We have a very unique agency. We have a couple of locations, very homey-like locations, very comfortable. You know, people come by, and it's a great agency. So again, if you need anything, reach out. Feel free to contact me with questions. Make sure you're getting all of your worksheets, and that if you're not able to print them out, at least open them up during each session and go over them, because they have very great information in them. Now, take the time to watch your videos. We're going to watch them live here. I can't show them here though because of copyright, so I don't want to do that. But I do have them ingrained into the different sessions, so you should be able, up and running, to watch your videos now. All right? Thank you, everybody. I'm going to turn the video off and turn our videos on.